I think the Sigewinne hate is a little overboard and a little bit ridiculous. Let's talk about it. Welcome to Jello Impact, where we build and test every single character to help you decide who you want to wish for and build. Now, to be clear, I don't think Sigewinne is a great unit. I don't think she's a very good unit. I don't know if I would consider her a good unit or not. If I would say there's great, or if there's like amazing, S tier, great is like A plus or A tier, very good is like A or A minus tier, depending on how you want to say it, and then good is like B tier. She's at least good, and maybe she makes it into the A minus tier as well, depending on how you value defensive units. What I see a lot of people talking about is how, oh, she's Dea tier, she's, you know, really trash, worst limited 5-star in the game. And I just think it's just very, very not true. I would like to compare her to Kokomi in this video because they obviously have a lot in common, being hydro healers. And I really wanted to compare to Kokomi because Kokomi is, you know, a unit that me and a large part of the community, I'm going to try not to refer to the community because the community is so diverse. There's so many different opinions in the Genshin community or what have you. But there is a large portion of the community that thinks that Kokomi is a very good unit, or even thinks that she's an excellent unit. I did a poll and a very large percentage of people, I think it might have even been the majority, thought that she was an S tier unit. And I definitely don't agree with this. I think Kokomi is pretty good, but I don't think she's amazing. And I feel very similarly about Sigewinne. So it's just jarring to hear a very large amount of people say that Kokomi is very good, and then again, a large amount of people say that Sigewinne is a very, very bad unit. I'm not saying that these two groups are the same groups of people, but I would like to speak to each of those groups and kind of hopefully converge them a little bit, because Sigewinne and Kokomi are very, very similar. I definitely overall think Kokomi is the better unit, and we can talk about this most clearly by looking at the teams. Now, Kokomi has 3 good teams right now. She's got Mono Hydro, which a lot of people consider her best team. We've got Nilou Bloom, which a lot of people consider her best team. And we've got Freeze, who everyone considers a pretty decent team in the right hands, but definitely not a meta team, definitely not an incredible team. Freeze has just been in a really bad spot lately. It's not that they can't get good clears, but it's very difficult. It requires good investment and very good play. And I think that in general, Freeze is a little bit on the underrated side, but it's definitely nowhere near as good as the other teams, in my opinion, especially if we consider ease of play and comfort and all of that. Now, looking at these 3 teams and the role Kokomi plays, Kokomi allows you to have a grouper, which is Kazuha, as opposed to if you were to put someone like Raiden or Hu Tao in the front slot, and then you would need an Animo healer such as Jean or Shenyun in the Kazuha slot. So, and obviously she provides some hydro energy, she provides some damage herself, and overall it's a good team. But Kokomi's damage is not very high on this team, and she provides no buffs to the team. Tenacity of the Millet does nothing here, and Thrilling Tales does nothing here, as opposed to on Freeze, where Tenacity and Thrilling Tales do a lot. And she has no innate buffing in her kit. So overall, this is just Kokomi damage and some hydro energy, and that's about it. What does it look like when we replace Kokomi with Sigewinne? Well, at least in my testing and in Jamie's preliminary testing and in a lot of other people's testing, Sigewinne feels like an upgrade here. Being able to front load Yelan's damage and Sigewinne buffing Furina, it may not be a lot, but it's enough. It's enough for it to be better than Kokomi. In addition, Sigewinne's heals are just very, 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 very comfy. The off-field healing, I really like it. It's very, and being able to use Yelan on field and get more skills and be more mobile, especially if you have Yelan's signature weapon or if you have Furina's signature weapon. Being able to on field Yelan can greatly reduce her energy requirements, which allow you to get a lot more damage out of Yelan. Mostly Yelan, less so Furina, but this is a team where Yelan really, really shines, and she does a lot of damage, and she's very fun to play and very easy to play. And I like this team a lot. I would choose this over the Kokomi variant every single time. Kokomi is a solid on-fielder for sure. She has a pretty good interruption resistance, but to be honest, losing out on the extra skill from Yelan if you're to on-fielder for a very long time is just not worth it for damage, and you end up just not playing Kokomi on-field for all that long anyways, and playing Yelan on field is much more flexible. If you're wondering why Yelan on field is good here, it's because she has a buff that buffs the active character, and that would be her in this team. And it allows you to always have flexibility to switch back into Kazuha to group again or to get max uptime on VV. And overall, I just think that this is a big upgrade or not a big upgrade, but I think Sigewinne is an upgrade for the team. Now, do I think it's worth going for Sigewinne for a mono hydro team? No. But is this one of the better Furina teams? Yes. Is it better than Novelette? No. But maybe in single target target, maybe it's single target, it could be. But for if you want to play mono hydro and focus on Yelan's damage, and the Sigewinne is the best in slot option for this team, I'm sorry. And people said that Kokomi mono hydro is very good. Well, Sigewinne is an upgrade for it. So if you thought it was very good then, it's still very good now. Is it worth getting? Again, no. You know, should you pull Sigewinne just for this team? No, but it is good. So that's something you got to consider. Kokomi, or for Nilou, you cannot replace Kokomi on the Nilou team. Sigewinne does a terrible job replacing Kokomi. Now, that means that Kokomi is still the best in slot option for the Nilou team. Sigewinne just doesn't have enough consistent hydro application to be a decent replacement for Kokomi. There is a part of me that just feels bad about like recommending someone pull Kokomi just to be a hydro applicator and healer on a Nilou team, because there's other Nilou variants, right? There's Furina variants where you really don't want Kokomi as the healer in particular, but no doubt about it, overall Kokomi is the best in slot. So yeah, you know, Kokomi has this one. Whether or not, you know, what's better, the Nilou team or the Sigewinne or the mono hydro team, I don't know. I would say that the mono hydro team is a little bit better. Now, the Nilou team doesn't take Furina, which means that your Furina is more available for your other side, so that's a good thing. But at the same time, the mono hydro team doesn't take Nahida, so your Nahida is free for the other side. And there's lots of good characters these days, and neither team takes Bennett, so you can always run a Bennett team on the other side. So I don't really think that, you know, one of these teams is really head and shoulders above the other. I think they're pretty close to the same level. Obviously, Nilou team is better in certain circumstances. It's way better in certain circumstances. The best team in the game, given the right abyss. But mono hydro is just very flexible, very easy to play, and it works in any abyss pretty much. So I would say that like the Nilou team has higher peaks, but the hydro team is more consistent and one of the better teams in the game overall. So I don't know. I think you could make an argument either way. And then freeze, to be honest, for meta is just really irrelevant. There's no reason to pull freeze if we're talking about character strength, and if we're calling a character trash, then we're talking about character strength. So, and if you're gonna go with freeze, this is not the freeze team I'd recommend. Why? You might say that this team is like, technically, is this team better at, you know, C0 for all the characters than the Furina freeze variant? Yes, absolutely, technically. However, if you're gonna, unless you like particularly want these characters, right? If you particularly want Shenhe, if you want Kokomi, you want Ayaka, and you want Kazuo on the same team, then by all means. But most people are gonna get a copy of Furina regardless. She's the best character in the game. Most people are gonna have a copy of Furina, and most people aren't gonna get a copy of Shenhe unless they're making this specific team. So by replacing Shenhe with Charlotte, assuming you have Charlotte, which you might not if you didn't wish on the original Furina Charlotte banner, but if you do and you have a constellation for Charlotte, Thrilling Tale Charlotte can be kind of hard to set up, but you can do it. Thrilling Tale Charlotte, Furina, you're saving yourself 2 pulls. If you don't get Kokomi and you don't get Shenhe, you've just saved yourself 2 5-star pulls. So what can you do with those 5-star pulls? For the same team, you can invest in C2 Furina. And now all of a sudden, this team is way better than the other team with the same amount of pulls put into the team. Now, you don't even have to go to C2. You can just stop at C1 and save that other 5-star pull for the other side. So if you want to play a freeze team, this is the freeze team that I'm going to recommend. Plus, you can just swap Charlotte for Bennett and do like a melt team. If you don't have it, you can swap Kazuo for Shengling as well and do a sort of freeze melt kind of thing. And that's the team that I've been really liking for Cryo lately. That's a lot easier to play. And again, that's just that's just more if it, and then we're not even looking at Kokomi. We're not even considering Kokomi. So what am I trying to say? I'm trying to say if you're gonna knock Sigewinne way down, you gotta knock Kokomi down with her. I understand that, you know, Kokomi can work in both Mono Hydro and Nilou Bloom teams. So good. I think that's good. I think that is a pro for Kokomi. Kokomi, this is why I consider Kokomi better than Sigewinne for that reason. I consider her better than Sigewinne because she's sort of really good on 2 meta teams, which is both Nilou Bloom and Mono Hydro, whereas Sigewinne, she is really good on Mono Hydro, and I think she's pretty decent in on-field Electro Hyper Bloom. So that would be Clorand or Yoimiya as the on-fielder. I would rather not play Sigewinne, rather have someone else, but it is very, very comfy. And this is a pro that I think a lot of people miss when they're talking about Sigewinne, is that her off healing is incredible and it keeps you so topped up and so high on healing that it's just kind of amazing. She's kind of like Charlotte as one of the healers that just sort of wows you with how much healing she gives. Baizhu is a character that doesn't give as much potent healing. Shenhe is pretty potent, but I think that Sigewinne is on another level in terms of healing potency. So I think a lot of casual players will really enjoy playing a team like this, and I think that this is a pretty good team. I think it's better with Fischl. It's still, I think, slightly better with Zhongli, and then I think Sigewinne would be the next character I put here. You could put Baizhu, you could put Kokomi, but Kokomi is really quite bad for a team like this. Her healing is just not enough to keep up with Furina, and I also think that there's more potential for Sigewinne in the future, but I won't argue for Sigewinne's power based on future potential, because it's very possible that we get nothing new for Sigewinne in the future. I would like to bring it home with one final point, in that if I were to rank them, I would kind of do something like this. I would put Kokomi on the lower end of great, maybe the upper end of very good, and I would put Sigewinne at the upper end of very good. I would probably tend to bringing Kokomi down to very good than I would to bring Sigewinne up to being great. I would like to see something like this or something like this, but Kokomi towards the bottom end. And again, I think A and A minus, or if you want to put A plus and A, the reason why I have them here and not A and B is because I think that they're closer than that. I don't think that I think that there's a need for more spaces in the tier list up here. You'll see my final tier list soon. Make sure to subscribe to see my pre-Natlin tier list. I've been working really hard on it, and I think I really like it. The other thing I want to just stick a nail in the coffin for the final claim is that, well, yeah, you know, you may consider her, you know, pretty good or whatever, but she's still the worst limited 5-star unit, and that's really saying something, right? She's really bad. Like, you might call all the 5 stars, all the limited 5 stars good, but she's actually pretty bad. And I definitely do not think she is the worst limited 5-star unit. Definitely not. The worst 5-star unit has to be Eula or Yoimiya. It pains me, by the way, to say that it has to be Eula or Yoimiya. Absolute pain, because I really like both of these characters. Eula's story and personality, and obviously her design isn't like one of my top favorites, but it is like really good. And Yoimiya is one of my favorite designs, and Eula's story and personality is one of my favorite stories and personalities, and I love her play style. But these characters are just really not good compared to others. Other characters that I think could be, I think Ito is quite a bit worse than Sigewinne. I think Albedo is quite a bit worse than Sigewinne. I think there's possibly some other characters that Sigewinne is better than. Like, I don't know, saying she's better than Ayaka, that might not be correct, right? Maybe Sigewinne does belong lower down and very good, but I just have a hard time putting her too much worse than Kokomi, because I think that they're very similar of units. It's like, do I put Kokomi up here just because she applies Hydro for Nilou Boom and heals? I guess so, right? That brings her to a higher point. So, but I definitely put Kokomi at the lower end, and maybe Sigewinne, maybe it is towards the middle of A minus. I'll give my final ranking in the pre-Natlin tier list soon. But yeah, I definitely don't think that Sigewinne is the worst limited 5-star. I still don't think she's one of the better ones. I don't think she's a valuable one. She's definitely one of the worst Fontaine characters. She might be the worst limited Fontaine 5-star. I think Chiori is probably better than Sigewinne, but there's also the point that, you know, Sigewinne's mono hydro team is probably better than maybe any Chiori teams. I'm not sure. I do like Chiori. You know, I do like Chiori, but I don't think that I think Chiori is underrated too. But I really do think that Sigewinne gets a much worse rap than she deserves in this regard. And I do want to throw a little bit of a bone to the people that say that she's trash, and something that does hold her back, and that she's pretty much reliant on Furina to be a real unit. Like, she needs Furina on the team to actually provide anything of value, because a lot of her value is in stacking up Furina, and she does it better than anyone, right? Because I think the idea is like, oh, well, Chi-Chi also does the same, and Chi-Chi's heals are just not the same as Sigewinne's heals. She just doesn't stack up Furina the same way, and yeah, the buff isn't amazing, but it is something, and it's much more than Chi-Chi can provide. And being a character that can support Furina has value in and of itself. And I do get that if you don't value that very much, then that really, you know, reduces a unit on the tier list. But I think that the fact is we do have Furina in the game, and Furina, you may not like it, right? You may not like that that Furina is the most meta unit, that Furina is the best character in the game, and that other characters are elevated because of her, and other characters are balanced around having her in the game. You may not like that, and you may not like that you do need, like, that having a good healer does boost your team's damage. You may not like this, but it is the truth, in my opinion. It is my opinion, right? At least it is the truth. I mean, it's a gray area whether it's the truth or my opinion, but for sure, I see you saying that she's a trash unit because she is so reliant on Furina. I see you, I hear you, I understand you, I get it, and that definitely does factor into me putting her lower than I might otherwise. But I still think that despite that, you do want to run a healer for her teams. Like you're gonna need, like, you are going to need a healer. And looking at all the healers, there's not a lot of them that can full heal the whole team from off field, that give a Hydro Resonance buff to Furina, that do boost the damage of the team. And because they're off field, they allow you to run a different off fielder. There's just not a lot of off field team wide healers in the game, really. Like, Shenhe is one, and that's why Shenhe goes pretty darn high on my tier list. And one of the reasons why it's hard for me to, I don't know, it's hard to put Kokomi up here. She does, I mean, people say, oh, she has Hyper Bloom, you can vaporize. These things are not good compared to other teams that you can do for Hyper Bloom or vaporize. The team-wide off-field characters, like, we have Baizhu, and I definitely think Baizhu is an amazing character. Shenhe, Jean, I think is very good at this point. But, like, if we're gonna talk about Noelle, right? She does a worse thing than Sigewinne from on-field, and we're talking about how a Noelle is really good, right? Furina is a relevant factor, and even if a character is reliant on another character, this is a team game and most people should have Furina. There is definitely the argument to say that, you know, hey, Novelette can max out Furina's passive and he's an on-fielder, and yeah, that's why he is one of the better characters and maybe one of the best characters in the game. Is she a lot worse than Novelette? Hell yeah. So anyways, long story short, I get it, and that's my response. So overall, what am I trying to say? Sigewinne, not great, but she has some stuff. Kokomi, also not amazing. Might be great, but if she's great, then Sigewinne is good. If Sigewinne's trash, then Kokomi's bad. If Sigewinne is bad, then Kokomi is good, right? Sigewinne is always one step below Kokomi, in my opinion. And if you don't care about Nilou Bloom, then they're the same. Because a lot of people don't care about Nilou Bloom. It doesn't work in every single abyss. It can be kind of funky to use. Sometimes it's kind of weird. It is easy. It is very fun. I do recommend it to a lot of people. But if you didn't care about Nilou Bloom, then Kokomi and Sigewinne are, well, Sigewinne's better, actually. Sigewinne's the better character if you don't care about Nilou Bloom. And that's something to consider, right? There's a good percentage of people that just don't care about Nilou Bloom. And in that scenario, Sigewinne is just the better character. And then again, this is talking about C0, the Sigewinne. This is talking about 4-star weapons. Sigewinne also has the potential of using Elegy for the End. Don't recommend getting Elegy at the End for her, but it's something that you can do. So basically what I'm saying is, if you care about Nilou Bloom, and what does this really matter? Like, people are saying she's trash, maybe as like a hyperbole, just so that people don't wish for her. And I agree, you know, for sure. I'm not recommending people wish for Sigewinne, but if you're a Sigewinne fan, she's arguably on par with Kokomi, depending on how highly you value Mono Hydro versus Nilou Bloom. She's arguably worse, but she's definitely not way worse. There's no possible world that I would put Sigewinne 2 tiers or more apart from Kokomi. She is either on the same tier or 1 tier below. I don't really think you could argue she's better than Kokomi, which, you know, could be considered a problem, right? And if you want to say that it's a problem that Sigewinne is, you know, sort of underwhelming and she's sort of mid, like I've talked about, then I think that's a fair criticism, and I think it's fair. But the idea of calling her trash, calling her one of the worst units in the game, people also just generally hate healers. That's definitely a thing that people do. She's coming out right before Natlin, so obviously people are looking for every reason to skip her. And I do think that she is a skip for the vast majority of players. Unless you like Sigewinne, I do highly recommend you skip, because those primos are just better saved for Natlin. But yeah, hopefully I think I did a good job of actually explaining my point. And I don't know how many comments I'm gonna read, because it always turns into like a cesspool down there on topics like this. But yeah, if you think Kokomi is great, Sigewinne is just 1 step behind. Let me know your thoughts. Take care. Bye for now.